Hey friends, I am super excited for today's dish. I have a plan, but not a recipe. We're going to make some rabbit that a dear friend of mine gave me. We're going to serve it with some mashed potatoes. I think I have a fun plan for some carrots because I cannot get away from serving carrots with rabbit. I don't know what's up with me, Doc. Anyway, it is the perfect kind of dreary, lightly rainy day here in Southern California to do a braise. So we're going to do a red wine braise for our rabbit. And we'll finish it with like a really beautiful red wine mustard sauce, kind of fine dining-y. If it came out looking like fine dining, I'll probably have put that in the title or on the thumbnail or something like that. But yeah, so I'm gonna hop right into it with the veg prep, and then I'll pop back in as we get to things that I want to explain to you that voiceover me won't do as good of a job with. So yeah, I'll be back in a sec.
Oh, I guess that means it's my turn to take over. So as Live Me said, he didn't have a recipe. I do have a recipe. It's also in the description, of course. But this is going to be 5 potatoes, peeled and chopped up. If I sound a little weird, it's because I'm getting over a head cold. So hang on, I have to cough. All right, that's better. But yeah, 5 potatoes. We're going to do 1 stick of butter, which is a 1/4 cup or 2 ounces. And we're going to thin that out if we need to with some of the water that we're going to cook the potatoes in. We're going to add some herbs and stuff later, but we're mostly keeping the potatoes fairly simple. I'm not adding a lot of flavor to like the butter or anything like that. We're just doing kind of like an herby Palms puree, mashed potatoes kind of thing. Next up, we're busting out the finger shortener real quick. That's my Japanese mandolin. And we're just slicing some really thin bits of baby carrot. I use baby carrots a lot because I always keep them around the house. But yeah, we're just giving them a slice, super thin. We're going to use these for garnish. Save the guard. Be careful with these. I'm a fool. And then we're also going to cut a bunch of carrots on a super heavy bias, like well more than 45 degrees. And we're going to go ahead and turn these into quick pickles. They're going to be delicious and both a veg element on the dish, but also arranged in a garnish kind of way. Into the pot to make the pickles is going to go our carrots, some mustard seeds, some black pepper, a bunch of ginger. This is about 1 inch that I'm grating in. And then we're going to add some brown sugar, red wine vinegar, and of course a little bit of water just to thin it out. So with all that in, we're going to go ahead and throw them on the stove and go ahead and bring them up to a boil. While they come up to a boil, we're going to give them a stir, taste this brine, decide it needs more salt, let it go for a minute, give it another stir, taste the brine, decide that we want to add some oregano, and then we'll let it come up to a boil. Boil until the potatoes. Boil until the carrots are just barely soft. Cut the heat, let it cool down, good to go. We're going to slice some green onions here, again, to use both as part of the veg for the dish and for the garnish. I'm cutting 1-inch chunks on a heavy bias because they will look very pretty once I've tossed them in a little bit of the sauce and arranged them artfully on the plate. The tops are going to get sliced super duper thin and sit in a bath of ice water to get nice and curly, as you'll see later on. I'm also going to slice some chives, basically as thin as I can get them. Again, garnish, and then these are going in the potatoes. Parsley is getting a quick haircut, and then a fine chop. Again, garnish into the potatoes. We're going to take half a white onion, dice it up as fine as we can get it. We want as much of it as possible to dissolve into the sauce, and we'll strain out what we can't just break down into basically goo. Delicious onion goo. All right, moving on.
We've got 2 side and 4/4 of a rabbit. This is essentially the loin and the belly. It's not really quite right. It's the loin and the shoulder, more accurately. So it's going to be, well, rabbit in and of itself is really delicious, and this is going to be among the leaner, more tender parts of it. Rabbit is incredibly lean. If rabbit is your only source of fat, you can't get enough fat to live, or so I've been told. Someone fact check me on that in the comments. But yeah, so rabbit is really wonderful. The loin is sometimes called the saddle because that's the part of the animal it is. It's kind of this part that rolls up into the loin. I'm going to spare you the anatomy lesson this time. I would at some point love to do a butchery episode, in which case I would get a whole rabbit and break it down. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that. As it stands, we're going to cut this into a few smaller pieces, and then we're just going to season it. Now that we've got it broken down into some smaller pieces, let's go ahead and season it. Actually, I'm going to use a bowl for this. Hey, this one. So I'm just going to toss the rabbit meat in there. I'm going to add some mustard, but not all of it. We want to save some of it for the sauce. And I'm just going to kind of massage that around to coat. Oh, I'm an idiot. I should have salt and peppered this first. Alright, well, I'm going to go wash my hands, and then we'll salt and pepper this, and then I'll go wash my hands again. Oops. Alright, well, let's put that back over by the sink because I'm going to need it again in a sec. And then we're going to mix this around and then get it into some hot oil. I am going to use all of this mustard. I've got more. Alright, there we go. Wash hands, start thing, we'll see.
We're going to go ahead and toss what little rabbit fat we do have into the pan. Let that render out as much as we can just to get some extra flavor in there. But mostly we're just going to cook this in vegetable oil. Then we're going to go ahead and add our rabbit pieces to the pan. I'm not super worried about crowding the pan here. I'm trying not to, but things are going to get kind of close. It's not really an issue. We're not looking for like super crispy anything here. We're just trying to get some extra color, some extra flavor, some extra texture into our final product. These are going to braise in a wet environment for a long time. Not a super long time, but a while. And so we're not going to get like super crispy rabbit here. We're just trying to build some fond in the pan, get that flavor going, get some good color on them. And then we're going to go ahead and continue on from there. Alright, so we've got that color in the pan on the rabbit. Got some good crust built up that we're going to destroy with our braise. But we're going to go ahead and pull these out of the pan, ditch most of the oil, and then continue on to the next steps. Our immediate next step is tossing in those diced onions, spreading them around the pan with a little bit of salt and pepper, and using their moisture to scrape up as much of that delicious fond that's stuck to the bottom of the pan. Once we've got a fair amount of that scraped up, we're going to go ahead and just let these sweat for a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and add the rest of our kind of sauce base ingredients. And those additional sauce base ingredients and braise flavorings are going to be about about 1 tablespoon of anchovy paste. Leave it out if you don't want it. You'll miss it, but you won't know why. And 2 tablespoons of tomato paste that we're just going to stir in and saute with this until the mixture has darkened and it's well incorporated and you can't really pick it out. Then it's time to really get this braise going. And this is going to get braised in a mixture of red wine. We're going to save a little bit of the red wine to add to adjust the flavor of the sauce later. And then we're going to do the rest of it in chicken stock, which at first I was like, oh, I don't want to get this chicken fat in here. But then I'm like, I definitely do want to get this delicious chicken fat in here. So yeah, we're going to let that braise until it's kind of fork tender. It ended up taking about 45 minutes. I did it on the stovetop. You could definitely do it in the oven. If you did it in the oven, it would probably take a little bit longer, probably closer to like an hour and a half. But yeah, so we're just going to let that go until it's fork tender, and then we'll continue on with finishing our sauce and getting everything ready. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and do our mashed potatoes. So these are just potatoes boiling till they're fork tender. It's hard to overcook mashed potatoes. You can, but don't. Once the potatoes are done, we're going to drain them, saving some of the potato water because it's got all that delicious flavor and starch, and we can use it to thin down our mashed potatoes later. Once they're drained, we're going to add a stick worth 2 ounces worth of butter, and we're just going to mash them around until they're nice and soft and delicious. If they need a little bit of more moisture, go ahead and add a little splash of the potato water that you boiled them in, because it's got all of the flavor and stuff. We're also, of course, adding salt and pepper, and I'm adding MSG. But yeah, we're going to do this, and we're just going to let them sit, because we're going to add the herbs right at the end, aside from we're going to add all of the herbs right at the end. Now that our rabbit is just about fork tender, we're going to go ahead and pull it, and we're going to add another couple tablespoons of mustard to the pan of sauce, as well as the last of our wine addition. And then we're just going to stir in the mustard and let this reduce until it has almost, but not quite, gotten to sauce consistency. As you can see from the last little bit, it's got a good little way to go. I think this took like 20 minutes to reduce down. And now that we're almost at sauce consistency, we're going to double strain this once through a fine but not super fine strainer into a measuring cup, and then again into the little pan that you can just see on the lower right. We're doing this because we want to be extra, extra sure that pressing on this to get the liquid out didn't press any solids through that we didn't want. So the second strain is to catch those solids, because no straining is ever perfect. And then as we strain this the second time into the smaller pan, you can see really just how smooth and rich and velvety. There's a little bit of fat in here. We're not going to worry about that because we're going to be mounting this with butter anyway. It's just going to be extra flavor and deliciousness and richness. And this took a few goes because it kind of gets loaded up. You got to knock it out. You go again, etc., etc. But yeah, we're going to let it finish reducing down to sauce consistency in this little pan because it'll let us, get control over it better, and because I don't need another giant pan on my stove. But yeah, once this is done, we're going to add the herbs to the potatoes, and then we'll be ready to go. To finish the potatoes, we're going to add the parsley and the chives and season to taste. Everything is seasoned to taste, but you know what I mean. To finish up our sauce, we're going to go ahead and toss our sliced green onions in there, along with a knob of cold butter. It's cold, so it'll melt and emulsify a little slower, and that'll give us time to lightly cook, but mostly bring up to temp, the onion pieces that we're going to use for our plating. And once that's done, it's time for plating. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, for the plating of this dish, I wanted to go with something that was kind of playful, but also had the elements that you think of when you think of rabbits, carrots, and a garden, and that kind of stuff. So we're going to go ahead and make a little kind of mounds of mashed potatoes, and into those hills of mashed potatoes, we're going to go ahead and just kind of scatter and dot around our vegetables, the pickled carrots that are nice, and they're still a little warm, which I wanted. I didn't want them to be like cold pickles on an otherwise warm plate. So yeah, we're just going to kind of lay those in at an angle so they're kind of sticking out a little bit. My goal here was to kind of make this look like a garden and a rabbit in that garden. I might be morbid for that. There's a kind of some inherent morbidity to any kind of plating animals with stuff. Let's not get too deep on that here. Anyway, yeah. So we're plating this up to look beautiful, and then we're gonna give it a taste.
All right, it's ready, it's plated, and I can't wait to try it. So we've got some herby mashed potatoes, some quick pickled carrots, a little quick poached green onion, and of course our rabbit that we've braised in red wine and chicken stock. Let's give it a go. I'm going to start with the potatoes. Yeah, those are just solid mashed potatoes. Can't complain about that. The onions are just kind of a nice little pop of like brightness, you know, little texture. And then the carrots also, because we pickled them, they're a little bit sweet, a little bit sour. They've got that ginger going on. So they really provide a nice contrast with like rich potatoes and sauce and stuff. All right, let's dive in and try the rabbit. Oh, boise, that's good. Needs a little sauce. Mostly because the sauce is so delicious. Mmm. Yeah. All right. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to go feed this to a couple friends of mine. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your time zone. Thank you so much for watching. As always, likes and subscribes and comments super help out. If you want to follow me on social media, I've got links in the description. The recipe will be in the description because future Wash knows what I just did today and can watch it back and figure out a recipe. If you liked what you saw, I've got a mix of basic technique and how to make basic food fancy stuff and everything in between. And I hope you'll check some of that out. They're probably floating on screen here. But again, until then, as always, friends, thank you so much for watching. And to paraphrase David Picciuto, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and cook something. Bye, guys.